Chapter 7. Ultimate Recipe to Create a Female. Therefore, this is the recipe for creating a female. You can start with any of these. Opening ingredients: asparagine or glutamine, threonine, or tyrosine. Add ingredients for the left-hand thumb. Add leucine and serine and leucine then serine. Add ingredients for the index finger. After that add valine, then again add valine, also add alanine and serine. Now add ingredients for the middle finger. Valine, then add proline and isoleucine, then add serine. Now add ingredients for the ring finger. Valine, then add serine, then stop and resume with adding threonine. Now add proteins for the little finger development. Add valine, then serine, then methionine, and lastly add serine. Now sit and relax while the proteins are at work making the female's left hand. You might want to start thinking about the name of this girl while the creation machine is at work. Or start working on the creation of a male. Here is the recipe. Recap from previous chapters. A male's starting DNA sequence is the starting DNA sequence from his left-hand thumb to the left-hand little finger. I explained above that all male DNA sequences for every part end with Ga. Therefore, let us compile this DNA from the above information. Male's starting DNA sequence. 4 possible start of a male DNA sequence are: A. At equals 3 equals serine. B. Cat equals 9 equals histidine. C. At equals 14 equals threonine. D. Dat equals 4 equals tyrosine. The recipe for creating a male is the following. Start by creating the male's left hand. You will need the following as opening ingredients: serine, histidine, threonine, or tyrosine. For the left-hand thumb add the following: leucine and serine. Add leucine then stop. For the left-hand index finger add the following: leucine plus tryptophan plus leucine plus arginine. Add the following for the middle fingers: leucine plus serine plus tryptophan plus glycine. For the ring finger add the following: leucine plus serine plus aspartic acid plus arginine. For the left-hand little finger add the following: leucine plus serine plus aspartic acid plus arginine. Chapter 1. What is DNA? DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. DNA is a large molecule that carries genetic information about the functioning, growth, and reproduction of all living organisms. It consists of a polynucleotide that bonds and binds together to form a double helix. DNA is essential for all living organisms. The DNA sequence rules. A complete set of a function or trait must have 12 DNA sequence letters. Any 3 letters of any base can form a protein. The bases are adenine A, guanine G, thymine T, and cytosine C. A combination of any 3 of these can form a protein. To know which proteins make up a trait or function of a body, we must look at 4 connected occurrences at any time. The complete set of everything in nature has 4 ways. Just like the season, they come in 4 different ways. The complete rotation of everything is depicted as a 4-headed creature or being. DNA as a language or like a language. Like I said at the beginning, DNA is like a manual for instructions to make proteins. Any written instructions are through a language that has rules for encoding the language so that it is understood. That means DNA has a start, a pause, and a stop. Start of a DNA sequence. A start is the beginning of a DNA sequence. Usually starts with an A, adenine, and ends with a T, thymine. It does not matter what it is between. Start can be as simple as A_T. It is true also that the start can be any of the following: ACT for a male or ACC for a female. AT for a male and AAC for a female DNA. AGT for a male DNA and AAC for a female DNA. Pause of a DNA sequence. Just like a language, the DNA sequence has a pause as a brief stop. This is represented by 3 cytosines. Therefore, a pause is CCC. Stop of a DNA sequence. Just like a language, a stop depicts when to stop in the sequence to start something new. A stop can be at any stage in the sequence but after tyrosine or cysteine. A stop sequence can be any of the following: AAA, 8DG, GTA. The left-hand thumb finger is the starting point. When the body starts compiling a body's DNA, it always starts from the left hand's thumb finger. This is the starting point. End of a DNA sequence. The body will end the DNA sequence with a CCC first. You know from above that this is a pause, then followed by a start. You also know that a start can be any of these: AT for a male and AAC for a female. GTG is a start for DNA sequence that involves all animals and is never used as a start for human DNA. ATIT is used for starting DNA for flying birds and not for humans. TAT for a male or TAC for a female. ACT for a male or ACC for a female. Then followed by a stop, but only the stop is used at the end of any DNA sequences. This means the real end. GTA. The body compiles and updates a person's DNA several times throughout life. First, DNA at birth. The body compiles the person's DNA at birth. CTCTCTCTCTCT. This DNA sequence is also referred to as God or sometimes life. DNA is compiled every year, also on birthdays. This DNA sequence CTCTCTCTCT divided by a person's age gives an aggregate life DNA index that can be used to determine the well-being of a person. It can also be used to calculate a person's lifespan, guide, etc. The body calculates, compiles, and updates a person's DNA every 4 years. Last day of compiling DNA. The last body activity just before death is the calculation and compilation of DNA. The last DNA entry before air exits the body is a Tag-tag-tagta. Therefore, Tag-tag-tagta is death. Chapter 2. How does the body compile a person's DNA and how does it do it? A body can easily produce a long chain of DNA sequences consisting of 52,200,000,000 elements of the 4 bases, namely adenine A, cytosine C, guanine G, and/or thymine T for a normal person. This can be a long chain, but the body can tell any part within the chain. This is because the body has an order of creating this DNA sequence. So, it will simply calculate position even though this might not be specific for every person. It is interesting to note that the human DNA sequence of a normal person consists of more than 52 billion combinations in total. God's DNA has 53,600,000,000 combinations. Somehow when I time traveled back to the past, my DNA has become 53,600,000,000 as well. I wore God's stencil, just not sure if this is temporary or not. Out of this world experience. See last chapter for further reading references. The body follows a specific pattern and rules to compile a human DNA sequence. The body follows its rules to produce an individual's DNA sequence. Recap of some of the rules I mentioned above. 1. The opening DNA sequence at birth is CTCTCTCTCTCT. This is the same DNA sequence for God or Yahweh in Hebrew. The start of life and everything. Changing the last 2 letters with CC for a woman and with GA for a man gives the DNA sequence of people just birth. Notice that since humans are created in God's image, they must match. Therefore, at birth, everyone is as good as God as they are God's image. God or Yahweh's DNA sequence is CTCTCTCTCTCT. For a woman at birth, it is CTCTCTCTCTCC. For a man at birth, it is KTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKTKT God in DNA. God or Yahweh's DNA sequences CTCTCTCTCTCT equals 2 plus 3 plus 2 plus 3 equals leucine plus leucine plus serine. Do you know that a human being has 23 chromosomes out of 46? 2. 4 possible start of a DNA sequence are: A. Et for a male or AAC for a female. B. Cat for a male or Ca for a female. C. Act for a male or ACC for a female. D. TAT for a male or TAC for a female. 3. Female DNA sequence will always start with a CCT. 4. Male DNA sequences will always start with a GTT. 5. The DNA sequence of a function or trait will always have 12 letters of the bases, namely adenine A, cytosine C, guanine G, and thymine T. 6. The DNA sequence will always have a start, a pause, and an end, that is a stop. Whereas CCC is a pause. A stop sequence can be any of the following: AAA, ATG, or a GTA. 7. The body will always read and compile DNA sequences from the left side of the body, specifically from the left thumb. 8. The body distinguishes between sexes, and where body parts are governed by a person's sex, the body asks itself the sex of the individual concerned. A perfect example is when it reaches the nipples. These are both on males' and females' bodies. So, it must add another entry to the DNA about the sex of the individual. 9. The body distinguishes between the inside and outside of the body. Some parts, and at some stage during compilation it look at inside parts, for example at the inside spine, stomach, throat, head, etc., as distinguished from outside of the body. 10. The body looks at full body features and categorizes these. It looks at all organs and categories these. It then looks at specific points on the body, although not in the order I am mentioning them here. Then it looks at compiling a toe-to-head DNA sequence. Then look at specific head parts, the nose, eyes, lips, teeth, hair, etc. At some points, the body then looks at all orifices on the body, namely, anus, mouth, nostrils, ears, eyes, penis, and vagina. 11. The body looks at defective orifices. Extra orifices induced by body defects, like a second opening somewhere it should not be. 12. The body will look also at the inside. The factors that determine things like height, lifespan, age-related deaths, family tree, etc. The body will calculate the aggregate life index, where it takes DNA sequence at birth CT and divide this by the age of a person. Above 0 means great. The body also looks at other function parameters like breathing. The body will calculate an overall score. After all this, the body completes and ends the DNA sequence first with a pause, which is a CCC, then with a start, which can either be AT for a male or AAC for a female. ATIT is used to denote the start of DNA for flying birds and is never used as a start for human DNA. Or ACT for a male or an ACC for a female. Then the end of the DNA sequence is shown by a GTA only, which is a stop specific for ending the DNA sequence. 13. Therefore, when a person dies, the last DNA sequence entry will be tagged. Chapter 3. The actual process the body uses to compile a person's DNA. A step-by-step definitive guide. Initial starting point. Left-hand thumb finger. But I explained in the previous chapter that the body, when compiling DNA, distinguishes between males and females. Also, recall that I said the initial entry at birth of any person is the life DNA sequence, which is CTCTCTCTCTCT. Starting DNA for females is the following. We remove the last two parts of the